As Karl Marx watched his aristocratic father-in-law seize his last remaining monopoly property, which happened to be JFK Airport, he remarked under his breath that this win was as classless as the society he one day hoped to create. In 1848, German philosopher Karl Marx suffered one of the most humiliating defeats in the history of monopoly when he landed on Prussia Avenue, which had a max-level hotel, and he was forced to pay over $8,000 in rent. Thinking he could create a better game that did not involve bringing financial ruin upon his closest friends and family, Marx began to rewrite the rules of Monopoly in a multi-page game theory paper that would later be adapted for real life. When assessing his $5,000 plus defeat, Marx realized that the most critical flaw in the game of Monopoly was the complete absence of a government. In his new version of the game, he vowed to fix this by creating a new form of governing political philosophy called socialism, as Monopoly happened to be a very social game. He defined this philosophy in his manifesto, famously writing, "Socialism is when the government does stuff, and if it does a lot of stuff, it's communism." And boy did Marx intend for this monopoly government to do a lot of stuff. His first big change in the game was to establish equal economic access to the property market by abolishing turns. Instead now, everyone would roll one dice together and collectively move to that place on the board. With this change came the abolition of private property. Instead now, the entirety of the group playing would own each property as a collective. This meant that they would all purchase the property in equal amounts, and they would also pay rent on the property as a group if they all landed on it in the next round. When Marx beta tested this new version of Monopoly, many people did not get this aspect of the game, so he decided to put it in terms that people would easily understand. "Property in this game," he wrote, "is like my mother-in-law. Everyone gets a share." In his revised version of Monopoly, the game was now not about trying to bankrupt each other, but instead trying to bankrupt the bank itself, whom Marx saw as constantly pitting the players against each other in a hyper-competitive, damaging environment. Karl Marx's final and most reasonable part of his philosophy was to abolish the family unit, as he saw sibling rivalries as being toxic to Monopoly gameplay, and he was sick and tired of his father-in-law saying, "Hi socialist, I'm Johann," every time Karl and his wife came home for Christmas. Marx published his version of Monopoly later that year, and although it didn't receive much attention at first, his version of the game would later become extremely popular in places such as Eastern Europe and parts of Asia and South America in the years to come. A shout out to my patrons for selecting this video for the month